Well, hi there, food friends. Welcome to Cavalcade of Food. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Ralph.
And you know what we're doing today?
No, but it's looking buttery and brown sugary, so those are two good things to start with.
We're making a cake. We're going to make a caramel cake.
If we knew y'all's was coming, we'd have baked a cake.
We'd bake the cake. All right, we're making a caramel cake here, Ralph.
That sounds good.
First, I'm going to make some kind of caramel sauce. It's going to be part of the batter.
So like the base of the batter?
Right. Here's what I've got in here. I've got a half a stick of butter, which is a 1/4 cup. Okay, of butter.
And I know you like to use unsalted.
I do. And then what I've got here is I've got 2 cups of brown sugar. And remember, when we measure brown sugar, we always pack it. Right? See how it holds the shape of the measuring cup
just
here?
like when you're on the beach playing in the sand castle.
Exactly, just like making sand castles. We got 2 cups of brown sugar. And then I got 2 tablespoons of water. Okay?
So
caramel, I'm going to put in a little salt. I'm sorry.
Caramel is
1/4 teaspoon of salt.
And then, so really it's just butter and brown sugar.
Yeah, really. I mean, that's kind of what caramel is.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to take, this is a thermometer. And what we want to do is we kind of want to get this to what they call a softball stage, which is just under 240 degrees.
What do they mean, softball?
Softball means that the sugar will spin a soft ball when it comes out. Okay.
So it's about
there's like softball and hardball. These are kind of candy making terms.
Oh, so these are the consistencies.
Right. And it just tells you that the sugar has been cooked enough.
Yeah, lets you know when it's ready.
Brown sugar in there. I'm going to try to dissolve that.
Oh, you got lumps?
I got lumps. I got 1 lump. Here we go. We'll mash it down. That happens sometimes. They say that you can put a slice of bread in your brown sugar, and that helps keep it dry. Because when brown sugar gets too moist, what will happen is you'll get lumps.
Lumpy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the trick about putting a slice of or a piece of bread in when you make cookies to keep them fresh. So it must work similarly, like draws out the moisture.
All right, I'm just keeping an eye on this as the temperature kind of goes up. I'm going to keep stirring. I'm using a silicone spatula for this, which I like to use.
It won't burn?
No. No, it won't. So I'll come back to stirring, but I'm getting my other ingredients ready for the cake, which will require 3 eggs. And we've talked about this especially when you're baking or really doing any kind of cooking, but you should, unless it's specified where your ingredients should be cold, like when you're making pie crust, you might want your shortening or your butter, whatever you're using, to be cold. Usually when you're making cakes, you want things at room temperature. That includes your eggs, which normally we keep in the fridge. So you can either set them out a half an hour ahead of time, or if you're like me and always forgetting to take the eggs out until the last minute, something that you can do is you can put them in just tap water, just when you open the faucet, the cold, and
not hot water?
No, not hot water, but just sort of kind of tepid tap water for about 5 minutes. And you know what? They'll come up to perfect temperature, your eggs. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, Ralph, let's see. We are getting there. I'm going to keep stirring. You probably cannot get a shot of the thermometer, the mercury going up. Yeah, but we are at about 225 degrees right now. You see it's bubbling?
Yeah.
Now once we get it to 238 degrees, which is softball stage, we're going to take it off the heat, and then we're going to add our other 2 ingredients, which are a cup of condensed milk, evaporated milk, and I'm going to put in 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Okay? All right. So here we go.
The mercury's rising. It isn't surprising.
People who make candy regularly, they can just tell when it's ready by sight. They don't even use a thermometer, but I don't do it that often. So
Well, that's a
I
good,
need a little help here.
It's a good fun thermometer to have.
Yeah, it comes in handy for a lot of things too. Like if you're frying something and you want to get it to a certain temperature, the hot oil.
Yeah.
It's nice. They're not expensive. They just clip right on. And we are there. Okay. So I'm going to take the heat off. We're going to take it off here. All right. And now we're going to add our cup of evaporated milk, condensed milk. Okay. And let me get...
Is it evaporated or condensed?
Yeah, those are two words for kind of the same thing.
I don't think so.
Really? Well, there's sweetened condensed milk.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Which has sugar in it.
Right, but so this is just like a pet milk, evaporated milk, like you see all the time. Okay.
Well, because what evaporated milk is basically, Ralph, is the moisture has been removed from the milk.
So it's like a concentrate.
Yes, it is. It's a condensed version of the milk. All right, now I'm going to stir this in to get it nice and incorporated. Now at this point, all we really need to do is let this cool.
Okay.
And it will thicken up. But this is our caramel sauce.
Yeah, it smells yummy.
It does smell yummy. All right, so this part's done. I'm going to go ahead and get our other ingredients, and we'll start getting our stuff ready to make our special caramel cake here on Cavalcade. So we let our caramel sauce that we made cool down.
Okay.
Okay. And it makes a little bit more than 2 cups, but this is how much we need for our recipe. 2 cups. This is the caramel sauce. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do our cake. I take the mixing bowl here. Here's what I've got, Ralph. I'm going to sift together. This is 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, which I sifted once already. Okay, I'm going to put that in there. And we've got baking soda, 1 teaspoon.
Okay.
Baking powder, 1 teaspoon. These are our leaveners here. Okay. And then just salt, 1 teaspoon. Let me stir that around. Then we're going to sift these things together. Anything caramel, anything butterscotchy is so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look at this. Okay?
Okay.
Good.
Very good, very good.
Let me get this over here. All right.
Now what?
Well, now we're going to put it on the mixer, and we're going to add to this. I've got a 1/2 cup of shortening, and I've got a 1/2 cup of milk.
Regular milk or
just regular milk.
Whole milk, not condensed. Or...
Now, I'm using shortening here. You could use butter if you wanted to. There's a lot of butter in the caramel sauce.
It's sugar gravy.
And it's sugar gravy. There's a lot of butter in there, and there's going to be butter in the frosting. I'm using shortening here because I like the texture that it gives the cake. Okay? Again, you could use butter instead of this if you wanted to. 1/2 cup.
All right, this is going into the cake mix.
Yep, into the flour and our dry ingredients. And then we're going to put in our milk. Again, a 1/2 cup of milk. Okay? So let's just bring all that together and kind of cream it all together a little bit. Using one of our
vintage appliances.
This is an old Hamilton Beach stand mixer.
What a design! Isn't that cool?
Great?
Looks like a ray gun. It's like something out of a sci-fi
It has a real
movie.
interesting kind of double batter here, or beater kind of setup.
Yeah. Interesting.
So we're just gonna kind of get all this put together. A lot of times when you're making cakes, you alternate the dry ingredients and the wet ingredients together, but in this case we kind of put the dry in first, and then we're going to put some of our wet, like that milk that we had.
What do you mean alternate them? Sometimes
when you add them to the, when you add them to the bowl. Oh, you do a little bit
at a time,
yeah.
Kind of thing. But here you've done it all together.
Yes,
all at once. Gotcha. Okay.
So I'm just going to get this all good and mixed, kind of creamed up together, and then we'll be back to put in our other wet ingredients, which will be our caramel sauce. And now we're going to put this caramel sauce up in here. Go. Oh, that smells so good.
So you could probably put them all in together.
You could. I wanted to get that shortening creamed in a little bit. But if you wanted to, you could definitely, you could put them all in.
All the wets at the same time?
Yeah, but I like to get the shortening kind of cut into the flour mix.
Yeah, it's making it blend better.
So, now we're going to take this up. Can you smell the caramel, which is sort of the
buttery,
buttery, burnt sugary,
vanilla-y, yummy.
So, yeah. So this is there were a lot of companies that made mixers at this time. Sunbeam, of course, was probably the most popular. Dormeyer, Hamilton Beach, Westinghouse, but they were really a helper because it freed both of your hands up to do other things, and it actually really mixed the things much better than you could ever do by hand.
Yeah.
See? Okay, look how, now this, all right.
See how smooth it is?
See how creamy and smooth it is?
Yeah. It does smell good.
Okay. So now we're going to do the eggs. Okay. And so, remember my trick about I have these eggs in this water here.
Right. Just to get them to room temp.
Yeah.
That's always good.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of crack them into this measuring cup here. So I got 3 large eggs.
Put the whole thing in.
The whole shebang.
Except for the shell.
Yes, we'll leave the shell out this time. Although one slips in on occasion, and you know what?
That's how you know it's homemade.
That's right. Okay. Also, we'll scrape down a little bit here.
Mm-hmm. Make sure that all the stuff is integrated off the beaters.
Yes. And off the side of the bowl. Okay. So, here we go. Now we're going to put our eggs in here, kind of one at a time.
Bloop.
Plop.
Clop. Blop. Plop.
Okay.
So they go right in there and get mixed up with everything else. It makes the batter even more wet, which is probably the consistency you need for a homemade cake, right?
Yes. So we're going to beat this another minute. In the meantime, the oven is preheated to 350 degrees. And I'm going to finish beating this, and then we'll get our cake pans prepared and get this beautiful caramel cake in the oven.
Let's get in real close so you can smell it. There's Kevin preparing the cake pans, and I guess he likes that spray, but you could also use
you could also grease this and flour it yourself if you wanted to. But
wait, you mean that has both in it?
It has, yes. You can see the flour. So it's just a step saver.
You can tell I'm not much of a baker. I didn't know they made such a thing. That's pretty cool.
All right. I got 2 9-inch round cake pans here, okay?
Are these going to be separate cakes, or?
No, it's a layer cake, right? So, bottom layer, top layer. So we're going to kind of divide the batter here as evenly as we can. And then, again, the oven is preheated to 350 degrees.
And you don't have to worry about it not looking so perfect because it'll smooth out when it's baking.
Yeah, and then we're going to frost this with a butterscotch frosting. Okay, so what what I do when I have a layer pan is I just kind of give it a little tap and a little shimmy shake.
Oh,
here.
that ensures that it gets the air bubbles out.
Yeah,
And
and that it's kind of even.
and it flattens out those little drips and drabs.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, good.
So there we go. Now we're just going to put these babies in the oven for about 35 to 40 minutes at 350, and in they go. Okay. It's been 40 minutes, and the cake is done.
As you can imagine.
I tested it with a toothpick. It came out clean. Another thing you can do is just kind of tap the top, Ralph, and see if it springs back.
Tap it, tap it, tap it.
Tap it, tap it, tap
As you can imagine, it's made the kitchen smell very
Yummy.
warm and yummy for a cold, wintry afternoon.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it in the pan here
Does it look how it's
for
supposed
another
to?
minute. Yeah. Here's another way you can tell if a cake's done. You see how it's pulling away from the sides of the pan?
Yes.
That's another telltale sign. So what I'm going to do, though, is
Let it cool.
just give them a minute more in the pan, and then I'll flip them out of the pan and let the cakes cool completely.
Oh, okay.
Once the cakes have cooled off, we will start on our butterscotch frosting.
Does that go in between the two layers, too?
Yes, it'll go in between the two layers over the tops and sides. And I forgot that I had some pecans in the freezer.
Those always go
So I've
good.
taken these out.
Those always go good with caramel.
They really do.
Frosting time.
Because the cake layers have cooled. So I'm going to make the frosting. Okay, I just melted half a stick of butter there,
Okay.
Ralph. That's a 1/4 cup. I'm going to put in, there we go, putting in a cup of brown sugar.
One more little sandcastle.
And I'm going to put in 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. Okay? Now what I'm going to do is we're going to cook this until just the sugar melts here. Okay? So, again, kind of back to, remember the caramel sauce we made?
Right, this is
Right.
pretty much the same.
It is. It's a little bit, it's going to be thicker than that was, because we're using this for a frosting. But we just want that sugar to melt into a liquid form here. Okay?
Okay.
Now the key is here, you got to stir it constantly. And just for a little insurance, I'm doing it in a non-stick pan.
Okay, and then the heat is about medium or low? Or?
Yeah, I've got it to medium. Because sugar can burn quickly.
That's another reason you have to keep stirring.
Right. Once the sugar's melted here, and it's getting close to being melted, then what I'm going to do is I've got a 1/4 cup of milk here I'm going to add to the mix here. Okay.
Is that enough to thicken it up? I mean, what makes it... Is there anything you have to add to it to get it to be frosting?
Well, I'll add some powdered sugar to it. Yeah, here we go.
But no cornstarch or Elmer's glue or anything like that?
Not in this one. No. Okay.
Crisco. Sometimes I've had cakes where they use shortening that makes the frosting very soft and light and fluffy.
Yeah. In this case, it's really just going to be
The butter and the milk.
butter and the sugar and the milk, and then the brown sugar and the powdered sugar. Okay. So in goes our milk here.
Just dumped it right in.
Yep. And now we're going to stir.
More stirs.
Yeah, and what I want to do is I'm going to bring this up to a little bit of a simmer, and we're going to let it simmer for about 2 or 3 minutes. Okay?
That probably thickens it up too, right?
It will. And then there, you see how I've got the milk is all incorporated here?
It's got a consistency and a smoothness and the color, the
Yeah.
texture. So yeah, I think that's
So
a good
we're gonna-
sign.
Yeah, so we're going to let that. I want to show you
These are the cakes after
right.
they come out of the pan.
Right, and of course I flipped the pan over right onto the cooling rack. So what I've done now is I flipped the cakes back. You can see the lines from the rack.
On
that
one of them.
made an indent in the cake. So here's this one, okay? Now what I do is around the edges, it's kind of a little crusty. I'm keeping an eye on our frosting here. You can leave it on if you want. I like to take it off. Some people use a knife. I take a pair of kitchen shears.
And it comes off that easily without
and I just
tearing up the cake?
Yeah, I just like to...
Just to make it a little more smooth?
Yeah, and that way the cake is soft. I don't want the cake to have these crunchy
edges.
You know, depending on the kind of frosting you use and how long it's on, it will soften up some of these harder spots, but just to get that crunch off of it. Okay.
Okay.
So there. So that's, now I've got that trimmed up.
So you already did it to the other one?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Now we're going to come back here, and I'm going to let this, oh, that wonderful caramel smell. We're going to let this simmer another couple minutes. Once it's done, I'll transfer it to this bowl. I've got 2 cups of powdered sugar here, and it's in a sifter. I'm going to sift the powdered sugar into the caramel mix, okay, and then we're going to mix it in the mixer, and that's going to create our frost. So this is simmering for 2-3 minutes. I'm going to transfer it to this bowl here.
Okay, well, it's hot.
Okay. Then,
well, you cleaned that too good for me to even lick.
2 cups of powdered sugar. We're going to sift that in here. Okay. And this is just to ensure that there's no... sometimes powdered sugar can get a little lumpy.
Yeah, congealy.
Let me get that in there.
So when you sift it in, it keeps it a little fluffier.
Yeah. So, and that helps make a nice, smooth, creamy kind of frosting.
Those snow mountains you made.
Like those?
Yeah.
Okay. So, now let's put our mixer into service here and blend that. So you can see the dry sugar, right, with the wet caramel.
Yep.
Is going to kind of come together in more of a stiffer form. Look at that. See that?
Yep.
See how it's kind of creaming together?
Yeah, whipping it up. Is this called creaming?
Well, this is just kind of combining here, but this is going to make the frosting for our caramel cake.
So very basic, you know, that's what I keep thinking. It's got a great color, great smell, but it's really just brown sugar, butter.
Brown sugar, butter, powdered sugar, pinch of salt. You know, the salt helps with the sweetness.
It kind of helps accentuate it.
And of course, you know, salt and caramel now is like all the rage. But there isn't so much salt in there that you'll even really notice it. But
maybe we should try putting some chunks of sea salt. Although you got those pecans that have a little, even though they're sweet nuts, they have a little saltiness to them.
They do.
On the top.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to frost. This is a cake plate.
Okay.
Okay. I'm using a cake plate.
Looks very old-fashioned.
Well, because it has a cover that goes on it. But there is a difference between a cake plate and a regular plate. You'll notice a cake plate is completely flat. A regular plate that you eat off of comes up, right? It's sort of concave in its shape.
Yes.
Right? So it comes out, or I guess it could be convex if you look at it that way, but it's not perfectly flat. A cake plate is flat. That way when you cut the cake, the knife goes all the way through to the bottom. Do you see what happens here when you cut it?
Oh.
It doesn't. You have to drag the knife through the cake because...
You'd hit the edge first.
Exactly. So that's why...
cake plates are different.
Exactly. Now, I'm going to put that there. Now, one trick that some people use is they'll take a little bit of frosting here and they're going to put it right there.
Really? What's that for? Oh, that almost looks like fudge.
That to hold the cake in place. All right, so it doesn't move around.
And then you'll never know because you're eating it. You'll just be tasting the frosting again.
Now another trick that I use, because I'll be the first to admit I am a messy froster, is I take a little wax paper and I put a little thin sheet and I slide it right under the cake here.
So that when you're frosting
it, it doesn't get all over the plate.
Kevin's little helpful hints.
And make a mess. If you, and you are probably likely more careful than I am, but if you're not, this is a way to kind of keep your cake plate nice and clean. And then once the cake is frosted, we'll just pull out our layers here. All right, let me see how this is doing. I want to thin this out a little bit. It's a little too thick.
Which is fine. Into fudge.
And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little half and half.
If you didn't have that on hand, could you use a little water?
You could use water. You could just use milk.
I just have to be careful how much you add.
Right, and I mean I'm putting in maybe a teaspoon and a half, not a lot. I just want enough to thin it a little bit
so that makes it more spreadable.
The other thing is, if your frosting is too thick, you'll tear the cake.
Oh.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it becomes like spackle.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want to do so here.
Yeah.
Get that back in there. So, okay. I'm going to mix this, thin this out a little bit. And then when we come back, we'll start frosting. I think I'm going to put another teaspoon of half and half in there. Okay. I think we've got it fairly in good spreading consistency here. I don't want to...
Yeah, it's supposed to be pliable, and when it's warm, makes it easier to spread too.
So let's do this. Let's put our...
Did you ever Bondo a car?
I have, actually.
That's what it reminds me of.
So... This is going to be our middle layer. So what I thought I'd do, Ralph, is we'll just kind of put our frosting here.
So it's okay if it drips a little off the sides because that's going to go. You're going to get down the sides anyway.
We're going to cover all those sins up with the side frosting, but I just want to make sure that there's enough. So this serves two purposes. One, it'll stick the two layers together, and then. What do you think we put some pecans in here?
I don't know. Have you ever done that before?
Well, why not?
I like the idea, but if it's going to keep them from holding together, it might be...
Well, I'm going to press the other cake.
Oh, so it'll stick.
Yeah, on top. I think it'd be nice to have some nuts in the center.
Yeah, no, I like the idea. I guess I've never done this, so I didn't know if it would...
So
keep it from sticking, but if
yeah, let's just press that in there, right?
Yeah, it looks great. Even just like that, it looks like a coffee cake.
Now I'm going to put
the smooth side down.
Yes.
And there's a reason for that?
Well, because that way we get kind of a rounded top.
Oh, because the smooth side's flatter.
You could put it like this if you wanted to, if you wanted more of a straight cake.
But that's flatter, so that should. I see. So the bottoms. Or whatever that is, that's the top actually.
Yeah. How's that?
Oh, it looks like a big jelly donut, or what are those? Some kind of a big dessert. Like a big cookie.
So I'm gonna put these nuts there for the time being. So I'm gonna put some on top. We'll get our top frosted first, and the frosting is starting to stiffen up a little bit as it gets cold. How is it? I see you.
Oh, it's good. It's got a very nice creamy butteriness to it. So if someone was making this and they found that their frosting was starting to, thicken up more than they want to, could they, instead of thinning it out, could they just heat it up, like put it in the microwave maybe?
Yeah, you could heat it up, but I think I would first maybe put it back in the mixer, which is why I left the beater on.
So that motion would help keep it smooth?
Yes. All right, I'm just using up the last of the icing here, frosting, patching up any little holes. I told you I was a messy froster, and I wasn't lying, was I?
No, you weren't, but you know, that's one of the things that makes...
This is why they say, you know, this is a homemade cake.
And when it's soft, you can see the parts that are kind of soft. They start to smooth out eventually. So don't beat yourself up too bad. Let me do
it. Basically, you just really want to cover the cake and
some areas down there.
Thank you. So make sure that we have frosting over.
God, that would be a great birthday cake,
wouldn't it? You know, the top I'm not so worried about. It's because we're going to put our nuts on top of there.
Oh, okay.
Right? So...
You mean the pecans here?
Pecans, yep. And I just want to get these last...
You want to make sure the sides look pretty.
Yeah.
And so... you can see how, folks, you can see how helpful the wax paper comes in. How handy
totally.
That is.
Okay. So now let's take our pecans. And, you know, I don't know if I have enough, but you could even put the nuts on the side.
I think you showed me a trick for doing that one time too, didn't you? Or
yeah. Is
there a trick for that?
Well, it's not. It's kind of. It's a little messy.
What, you just throw them and run? Spin it and throw it? Have me spin it while you throw the nuts at
here,
it?
we can.
No, I like it on top.
Yeah, I think on top is nice, and you can...
You're only getting half of them on the floor.
Yeah. Well...
You can hear them dropping. No, I like them. I think it looks good, you know, just maybe keep it on top. But I want folks to see when the wax paper comes off, how pretty it's going to look.
You know, the pecans and butterscotch and caramel are really a nice...
Yeah.
Really kind of a nice combination.
They almost create a mapley sensation.
Yeah, it does kind of remind me of maple. All right. So,
let me.
Okay, are we ready?
We are.
So we'll take that off.
So you just carefully remove the wax
pull it
paper.
Back. Carefully pull it back, and carefully pull it back. Look at that. And the plate is fairly clean.
Yeah, that looks good.
And I'll kind of just press these in a little bit. There it is. That is our wonderful caramel cake.
With pecans.
Totally from scratch, but why not? You know what? We do box cakes all the time for different things around here. And they're great.
Not me, I do Costco cakes. No, I'm just kidding.
But every once in a while, it is fun to kind of make a cake from scratch. Oh, yeah.
And this is an old-fashioned recipe.
It really is.
Didn't you say this won a prize long ago?
It did. And so I hope that, you know what? I hope that you make a cake from scratch every now and then.
Especially on a cold winter month.
It takes a lot of pleasure in making a cake this way. And you know what? We sure had a great time doing it. And
relax to some Jackie Gleason in the background and eat some cake.
And then we're going to have our cake later on.
We're going to have our cake and eat it too?
And eat it too.
Look at that.
There we go, folks. Okay?
Perfecto.
Thanks so much for being a part of this one. We had a great time making this cake. Hope you had a great time being with us. And we'll see you next time here on Cavalcade of Food. Bye.